Welcome back to another episode of the What It Takes podcast. My name is Tuli Kraus, CEO of Blackbird Recruiting, and on today's episode, we have Aaron Klein from Real Hires. Real Hires helps companies find incredible offshore remote talent in, I believe, 40 different countries, almost every industry. I don't know if they're going to find you a NASA space astronaut, but pretty close. They work in a variety of industries from accounting, tech, customer service. Aaron, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
So
Great.
I'm excited to this conversation. The world of offshore is it's a very, very big world. So many companies are very apprehensive or nervous. They're cautious. They like when their people are in-house. Training is sometimes a little easier. So I'm excited to have this conversation, learn about the world of remote talent in the US, different countries around the world, different continents. Let's get started.
Amazing.
Why did you get into this business?
Well, it's a funny story. Years ago, I worked for a family member of mine. He owned a large energy company. And, I love different businesses. I was involved in the Amazon business and web development and photography. And I was also a real estate broker. So I had my things, like I even have a, own private label company. Anyways, I had it was a great handout at that time. I had a family member who had a very large energy company. I was hired to run the call center they were outsourcing to.
They were outsourcing a call center, you were running it.
It's a brain teaser.
Okay.
They hired a company to outsource some of their work, and they hired me to run it, which sounds funny because how am I running a company that's not theirs? They're just a vendor of. Okay, let's take a second and get that. Now, there was an issue that they didn't feel properly in sync with the company, right? So this was an energy company.
Mm-hmm. Who hired a broker?
They hired an offshore company to outsource their customer service and their sales, and they had them for 8 years. And the owner spent hundreds of hours of training them and everything, and it wasn't good. But he doesn't like change, and he wants to keep it. So instead of letting them go, great, I'll hire him, a family member of mine. And he was also the biggest client of them. So he kind of had a lot of pull. So he just kind of stuck me in there. I was obviously on his payroll, but I was running the whole, operation really.
So you learned the business the inside out from
of the outsourcing, because I was in a very unique situation. This was a company in India. I spent a long time working with them. I spent hours on preparing the training, and they were doing sales. So I was preparing the scripts and the processes and everything. And it wasn't, extremely successful. Some things were, some things weren't. And I just got a very interesting early on experience that the issue really is just that they didn't really care, because they weren't employed. You see, everyone runs out, you want to get someone to do something, you always got to follow the money. That's where the motivation always comes. Where is their money coming from? It's coming from the call center, not from the energy company. They don't work for the company, they work for the call center. So it was a funny dynamic. I had, there's sometimes a bit of a power struggle, but ultimately it's really that I realized is that they were smart, but they didn't care enough. And because of that, there was sometimes the connection between them and the company I was working for was fraying at the seams. So that's a lot of what I was seeing. I was doing the training, and they understood it, but they didn't want to follow through on it because they didn't care. At that point, I ended up telling him. I said, "Look," the family member of mine that I was working for. And it was I told him, I said, "Look, we got to switch to another call center. This is crazy." He said no, but I didn't care. I was still looking around. I checked out 6, 7 places. I didn't really love any of them, but anything was better than this. That's what I thought. He didn't want to switch. He says, "No, I'm not switching them. I'm stuck with this company." I'm like, okay. I pushed on, and then I said, at some point, I said, "Look, this doesn't make any sense. This wasn't even good for me. Like he was just had something in his head. So I told him at that point, look, I'm going to leave. And after thinking a lot about it, speaking it over with my wife, like I said to him, I quit. I'm going to open my own call center and you're going to become my client. That's what I told him. So I quit. It was a lot of drama with that, but it was done. He took it very personal, but like, it's like, I'm not here just to take a check from you. Like, makes no sense. This has to grow. And he became a client. He was very happy.
For someone who didn't like change, first of all, a few questions. What was it like going into entrepreneurship? You said you were in real estate, so I'm assuming you had an entrepreneurship bug inside of you earlier than this.
Yeah.
But going from a W-2 employee to owning your own business is not an easy shift.
Yeah. Well, I was never a W-2 employee. Let's say like that.
Fine.
I was a 1099 the whole time, or a solopreneur. Yeah, I mean, it didn't really make much sense. It was really kind of like in my blood. Like my family they're all entrepreneurs. My grandfather also, my father, they're all working.
So you got it in your blood and your DNA.
Yeah. And I love creating things. So
very cool.
It's wasn't much of a shift, but it was a big like culture shock. There was a lot. Like I was in the Philippines after my first kid. I was 23 years old, a year and a half after marriage. And I was just in a country, like, I didn't know what I was doing at first.
Right.
And most of my employees were double my age, which was kind of funny at that point. This is going back like 10 years ago or so, 12 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like a big culture shock.
For your family member who became your first client, you said he was very adamant, didn't like change. You leaving and him becoming your first client made him change, or what was that process like?
Yeah, because there was a lot of trust. You see, it's like there's some people that are very like controlling, but and then there's like within, like in between the lines, like there's somebody that can get it and there's a lot of trust. So he ultimately trusted me, but not enough to switch because I said, but once I left, he's like, look, this, it was under my auspices and there was kind of a choice. Like he wasn't going to find somebody else. I kind of like shifted I changed positioning without his decision, and like he didn't have an option there.
Right.
So that was an interesting change.
I think that's such an important thing for salespeople around the world. If you're listening, people buy from people they know, trust, and like. And trust is earned. It's not given. It's not bought. It's earned. So salespeople should realize that. Don't shove something down somebody's throat. Give people an opportunity to get to know you, trust you, and like you. Talking about the world of remote work, do you find it that, first of all, how many, like you said, what was it, 40 countries that you've been involved with?
Yeah.
Do you find it that certain countries have better strengths or dominate better in certain roles or certain careers versus others?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there are certain countries that are better at other things.
For example?
I mean, okay, well, let's say I'll tell you, Argentina, for example, is very good for, let's say, accounting.
Why?
A lot of the big four accounting firms like PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, like they have a lot of locations that are there. There are a lot of people that are really good at that. Ironically, there's also a lot of good designers that are there.
Interior designers?
Graphic designers.
Graphic designers. Okay.
And I say ironically because if you look at like personality types, like they're
finance and design,
completely different. And then there's a lot of good people at tech and operation administration in Mexico. There's obviously good tech people in Western Europe. There's a lot of people that are good at that. But again, if you're trying to stick within the time zone in South America and Central America, that's where you can get, But then on the other hand, there's really good salespeople in Nicaragua and Ecuador. I mean, yeah.
If someone calls you, are you telling them, if they're looking to hire different positions, would you tell them, okay, for this department, these positions, we're going to go to this country, and this department and these positions, we're going to go to this country?
Yeah. So I'll tell you how. It's broken down like this. There's positions in terms of which country you'd go to, right? So there's just category in terms of positions. And then there's a different direction, which you have to take in consideration, is the level of employee that you're going to get. I'll explain to you what that means quickly.
Okay.
Which means is like our company has 3 tiers of people. A tier 1 person is a really good, let's say, bookkeeper, administrator. They work in a silo. Okay. They're very good. But a tier 2, let's say somebody that can communicate with customers. They know how to, they deal with coordination. They in their back of their mind, subconsciously, there's a little clock. Like they have to know that, like, look, I'm going to do this right now, but there's 5 other things I have to do that at the same time. And executive assistant's very good at that. And a tier 3 person is, let's say, an operations manager, like a director. Like I filled in those
Leadership
positions remotely, yes. And they can kind of carve their own path. So they're not just an autonomous, independent contributor, which is a tier 2. They actually can, make their own decisions, right? So for the Philippines, I would only hire tier 1 people for.
Is that a cultural thing?
100%. 100%, because if you look back at in the early 2000s, when in the Philippines, if you see where all the business culture came from, again, this is not the podcast floating actual history of in the 1940s, when America came and kind of planted their flag, and then 2000s, blah, blah. But basically at that time, you had the massive call centers starting up, and everybody's, mother and father, let's say, worked for the call centers. So here in America, we're all about entrepreneurship. All the employees are dealing with front lines, of the business, right? And in the Philippines, everyone worked for, I worked for a BPO company, like everyone says, I worked for a call center. There, it's a real culture thing. And it's also Asian. So there's another element of it, but there's also what's actually on the ground there. So most of the people, let's say, work for a call center, like millions and millions of them, even through the night. And what they do is they're really just a pea in a pod. There's you can have 10,000 employees working for a call center, and then you can have 500 working for one company, and each person working for that company, let's say, does a little small thing there, right? They do so it's like what in America we would have, or even in South America, you would have one person kind of taking over responsibility. In the Philippines, they're taking over tasks, very different tasks and responsibilities. And, there's a lot to say on this, but I'm trying to be short here. Essentially, you can, the accountability for an output of somebody is not the same as someone over here. Over there, okay, if it doesn't work, it works. If it doesn't work, it's fine. If it does work, it's okay. It's it's not hurting the company's bottom line. And most of the business isn't coming from a guy necessarily hiring a virtual assistant. It's coming from the big companies. And even that, before VAs became a thing, it was all the big companies that were taking advantage of the cheap labor over there.
Right.
And that's what, and it came more into the culture of what people are used to. So again, when you ask me which country would I hire for what, I would do it based on category, position, and also category of expectations. A tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Have you worked with clients? Do you have clients that will have teams in different countries? Even tier 1, tier. So they'll have one team in Ukraine, another team in Uruguay.
I want to say one thing to that. I would never have one team, one country.
When I say team, a few employees or
they would have a few employees here. So certain positions they would have, let's say in the Philippines, a few they would have in Western Europe, like Estonia, and then they would have also in, and then they would have some in South America, like in Uruguay, Paraguay. They would have a few people over there.
That's what I was asking. If you'll have, let's say, one company that you're working with that'll have multiple employees from different countries because of the strengths of those countries.
Yeah, so there's one other thing on that note, is that some countries, where they put their money in the education system, so everyone knows, okay, Eretz Yisrael, that's where obviously it's tech, okay? Fine. It's an easy one. But within, let's say, South America, there's a lot, without getting too much into it, is in, let's say, what will the country see the most of the business coming in if there's a massive amount of, let's say, big 4 accounting firms, let's say in a certain country, that government will want the employees to, let's say, know more of that, so they can, it's not the right word, but it only comes to mind, exploit the opportunity. So they'll say okay, we're going to put in we're going to give more money to, let's say, these classes, or et cetera. And sometimes as a result, you'll have a lot of different talent there.
Very interesting. I know you mentioned, you told me that you've worked with in 40 different countries.
Yeah.
Why so many countries? What are the factors that go into when you have a client that is looking for remote employees, remote talent? Can it be drilled down into maybe 10 different countries? Let's say Mexico is good for customer service, and then accounting, Argentina, technology development, let's say Ukraine. Why such a big variety? Is there so many nuances in each one?
So I'll tell you why I do it at first, and then I'll answer directly to what you're saying. Okay. Within my journey till where I got to today, I had call centers. I had in a few locations in the Philippines, I had call centers, and we had like actual locations. And I know some people are very dead set in a call center, like a physical location.
Right.
I had them. I remember when we were trying to get good talent and like, okay, like, you know how it goes, like a Filipino, it goes, hey, well, my grandmother died, I'm so sorry, I have tuberculosis, or there's a typhoon, like all these like different things. Like what you see, again, like when someone has a virtual assistant, when what you get the text on WhatsApp from this employee, like I got it the same thing there. They all said they're sick, and then I was friends with her on Facebook because I had to do it because I was really careful. I wanted to know if there was all monkey games. So I had to do friends Facebook. I saw she was by her daughter's recital. I saw all the things. I saw everything. Okay, when I had that there, I really wanted to have it like I remember that we had to find replacements so often. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. I'm like going a little ADD with this here. Okay, I remember I was taking my employees out on like I was there. I went there a few times. Each time I was there, I was in the Philippines. That's where my call centers. Okay, so I went to the Philippines, and I was there for about like 2 weeks. My wife is a Sadekas. She let me do that. I remember going after like our baby was just born. I think it was our second. Yeah, it's like I had to go.
Shout out to the Rebbitzin.
Shout out to the Rebbitzin. So I went there. And I want to take my employees out on a tiul, give them maybe a little like a little like tour. Like I wanted to take them out. I saw like it was during lunch, and there was hundreds of people in the street, and I was wondering like what's going on? Is there a concert? Like I don't do these things, but for my employees, I would go. Concert, maybe there's something like I want to take them somewhere. Anyways, they said Aaron, they call me. And it's just lunch. Like, what are you talking about? When you just lunch? Like, it's lunch break? Like there was a lot of people. Like there must have been something happening. Yeah.
Like a parade of sorts.
I don't know if it was a parade.
Not
I just
parade,
saw people.
that
I just
amount
saw
of people.
Anyways, so I'm like, okay, explain this to me. Like, this doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of people here. And he said, okay, Aaron. So one of my supervisors came over to me. He says, Aaron, let me tell you. What they're doing is by lunch. So some people are going out to get like lunch, but most of the people are going to call centers across the street. Like, what does this mean? So he says is that by lunch every day, people go across the street to see if they can get a job that has more pay. I'm like, what? Do their managers see this? Like, none of the managers are also doing this. I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. I hope none of our employees are doing this. And freaking let them go like that day. That's crazy. It was really boggling my mind. I didn't even understand this. Like imagine your people or people, the guy has his employees going, and it's like routine, right? So it just really like taught me in terms of like loyalty and in terms of, so I have like this like hands-on PTSD experience of like, I just know how hard it was to go to kiosks and to the malls and everything, right? And I told myself, I said, one day I'm going to figure it out, and I'm never, ever going to be in a position of where I can't get people at my disposal whenever I need them. I have to create again, it's all about positioning. Business is positioning, sales is positioning, words are positioning. It's all about positioning. I want to have it where I'll never be in a place of where I have to be desperate of where there's ever going to be an employer's market. So that's why I had it.
Employees market.
An employees market, I'm sorry. So then when I went totally remote, it's like, okay, I have an issue in this country. I'm okay. 6 other countries. I can hopscotch between 18 different countries to find a good person.
When you say remote, what's unique about your company is your clients are not having people like a team of 10 people working in an office.
Right.
They'll work. Their remote employees are remote in their countries working from home. And can you elaborate on that? I know you told me you find it sometimes significantly more effective. Why?
Because there's a, from my experience, because I did it myself, sometimes there's like a bit of a facade. When people see things happening to things that they're paying for, they feel that they're getting an ROI. When, an example, so somebody has, let's say, a call, they they'll have an office in a remote location with employees working. So people want to see the cameras because they want to see people going to their office and their desk and working. When somebody has employees even remote, they want to see on the screenshots that like things are happening. But ultimately, that doesn't really tell you that they're doing and that they're working for you. Let's start with that. It doesn't tell you that they're doing the right work. It doesn't tell you that they're doing the right output. It doesn't really tell you much on that end. So when you have people that are actually doing the work, you want to be able to see that that the output is really there. I mean, that's one of the advantages of having somebody who's, so that's one element of it, in terms of like a myth. Like, doesn't mean that locations can't help. Like sometimes just being someone physical in an office, like it could help in a certain way. But the question is not if it's necessary, but really are you really in control? Because when I had my centers, I had some really good people there. I hired people that managed 5,000 employees, and they were just working for me. And they were running it like a sergeant. But people felt that, oh, Aaron Klein, the owner, is in Muncie, New York. We have like our own thing going on here. And when I came there, I saw that. So it's really ultimately about control. And of course, our company does monitor that. We see all things in context. But a business owner is like doing many different things. And if he thinks he's seeing the screenshots and he's like, okay, I'm good. It doesn't. There's a lot of like dissatisfaction that happens in the end. People don't look at it like an investment. And then they're like, oh, I didn't get results. Like, okay, this was a real estate deal. Would you want to know if the washing machines are working or if you're using extra water? Why all of a sudden by remote? So like we'll check over that, but they should really care about is ultimately the output. That's really what it's about. And that's why we say, okay, so now why we feel we're on that same, like, why it works, that everyone's remote, is because we're all on the same level playing field. I'm in Muncie. My director of operations is in director of HR is in Brazil. My HR admin, who's senior HR admin, is in South Africa. Nobody's like, there's no little clique that's without me. Everyone's on the same level playing field.
And they're all really good at what they do. So it doesn't matter where the talent is from.
I'm telling you right now, I'd pay over 6 figures if they lived here. No question.
Really?
For each one of the senior people, 100%.
So it's definitely a benefit to your cost savings.
100%. Instead of paying 6 figures, I'm paying a lot less.
What would you feel comfortable sharing those numbers? Let's say if someone was here, you're paying them 110. Now that they're in Brazil, because the market just pays less. It's not that they're not going to call you taking advantage of that.
Right. Look, I'll tell you like this. I have clients right now, for example, who have executive assistants.
Mm-hmm.
By me, they're paying, let's say,
a year.
They're a tier 2 person. Going back to that.
Okay.
They're paying a year $30K.
Here they would pay 80, 90, potentially.
Yeah, but you really have to think about it. This sounds good, but what's 1 second is the output a 90K? Let's think real.
That's a good point.
So that's why we call them a tier 2. I promise you, go on Facebook right now. You're gonna post up a job there. It's like, I'm looking to hire today an executive assistant. Sir, nakakapag salita. You're gonna all these Filipino or even the remote people. Like, yes, sir, I could do it. They're not executive assistants. They're probably just admins, and even that. And it's a very different person, by the way. Really, it matters is about the output, and it really comes down to is what sphere of perception would an employee have. It makes a big difference in terms of the tier. When you hire the guy that comes in your office, and this guy, I swear by him, he's amazing. He runs the whole thing. You know how he's doing it? It's not just because he knows how to be on top of things, but it's also that his sphere of awareness is very high, which means he knows that if he does this, that's going to happen. His perception of consequences of good or bad is far, right? And it's really comes down to his understanding, like almost scientifically, which you don't have to do. I mean, our company does, but again, I'm happy to share any of that information. It's really understand is that, does that person realize when they're 6,000 miles away or whatever, 3,000, whatever they are, do they know if they do this, what impact it's going to have on a business owner in Miami? Like, how much do they know that? And that depend. And that's really when you can compare ROI. That's really what it matters in terms of comparison.
I have a question for you. What would you say are the hardest challenges when it comes to, you're talking about different countries, different cultures, different time zones for your clients? What are some of the harder challenges that you've seen that when it comes to, you having someone in the office?
In terms of time zones?
Culture, even. Over, your years of experience.
What challenges have we seen in terms of time zone or culture? Again, I'm going to jump back to, I think what I would answer this is that I don't know if it's just culture, but it's more of the of like the setup. Okay, so I'll explain to you like this, which means sometimes we have clients who are, again, not just for advertising purposes or any of that. This is not but we have clients who are very happy with us and they're doing extremely well, and who can like swear by their employees. Our business is really run on referrals. This is why I don't really do podcasts. Baruch Hashem, we're doing great, but I love Tuli. It's awesome, and maybe I should do more. But again, we have employees that are that do very well and are very involved in the bottom line, like, of the company, like, that are really, like, Heimish, or like really into it. But there are some times that some business owners, so like I wouldn't necessarily say some of it is culture, some of it is just being aware. You have a remote employee who's thousands of miles away, and this guy is like, a business owner, and he's really hustling, trying to grow his company. He's meeting with investors, or he's meeting with he's doing sales, everything. Sometimes they don't realize that somebody is working remotely for them, and they delegate a task, right? And this guy's gonna say, look, Andrea, please, I need you to take care of my emails. I have a meeting coming up. Some of them are even smart, like sometimes we'll tell them, stay in the meeting. I want you to listen to everything, write down notes, put on my CRM, update the whole thing, right? Sometimes they're very specific. What happens is that because the person isn't there, sometimes they may not realize that you can't just expect somebody to know something. You have to be very explicit with them. And when the person is working remote, like, they're not sitting by the coffee cooler and listening to how amazing you're saying, look, Philip is fantastic. Let's say Moshe is telling his manager, his operations person, Bella, and saying, Bella, look, I just want to tell you, like, this guy Philip that we hired, he's amazing, fantastic, so good, right? But Moshe is a very, particular guy. Moshe tells Philip, look, Philip, I told you yesterday, I need this done now. Okay, the guy gets it done. But Philip right now thinks that Moshe doesn't really like him. He just bragged about him yesterday to Bella in the office. Right? So it's because he's remote, you have to go a little bit out of your way just to be really clear and say, like, look, you're doing an amazing job. And again, it's like any investment. If you just, you have a property that's in Texas, and you own the real estate, and you're living in Brooklyn, you have to make sure that there's, that things are being taken care of. Just because the property is there doesn't mean you shouldn't go out of your way to call up Padrio to go ahead and fix the the sewage. It's with anything.
Right.
So that's sometimes that people just need to realize, employees too. And that's what we really try to bridge the gap with, that is like really making them connected and realize that, like, that they're working with each other, and it's 100% doable. It's just something, they need to think of.
Such a good point. All right, Yossi says we got to do this with more energy. Are you spending between $20,000 and $30,000 a year on health insurance for you and your family? I use United Refuah Health Share. For me and my family, we're spending $500 a month on our premium. And when we end up spending $1,500 a year on our deductible, after that, they cover 80% of every doctor's visit. It's usually meant for Baruch Hashem healthy families that don't have any serious pre-existing medical conditions. And up to $4,000, they cover 80% of every bill. After that, they cover everything. It's very easy. You go to the doctor, you pay for the visit, take a receipt and the bill of what it shows what you paid for. You upload it to their portal, get a check in the mail. I've been using them. Every time I have a question, call them. You're talking to a Yid. Their office is in Cleveland. I spoke to somebody yesterday. I think her name was Rifki. Like, you're calling United Healthcare. You're probably on the phone waiting on hold for 20, 30 minutes. It's very complicated. Here you're talking to a Yid, one point of contact. I had a crazy story. Went to the hospital, got an $85,000 bill, ended up paying out of pocket like $600. United Refuah HealthShare showed me how to talk to the hospital, ask them the right questions, negotiate with the hospital. Very good stuff. Saves a lot of money. I absolutely recommend you reaching out to them and learning if it's the right fit for you. And we're back. I have a question. Whether someone wants to use your company, Real Hires, or they want to try to find remote employees on their own, what do you think are some things they should look out for so they set themselves up for success? And what are some of the common mistakes people make when it comes to remote employees, offshore employees, remote, offshore, remote, here in the US?
Look, before you reach out to offshore companies, you need to understand, like, don't band-aid the problem, which means is you got to understand, like, what is the problem? Like, if you're hiring somebody remote, are you looking to release pressure from a high-level person? Are you overwhelmed yourself, and that's why you need to hire somebody? What exactly is the issue? If a lot of times, I call this the shiny penny syndrome.
Shiny penny?
It's the shiny penny syndrome. People think, I'm going to hire a virtual assistant. I'm going to pay a few bucks an hour because I'm going to get someone who's going to work for me, and I'm going to get an actual human being helping me. All I got to do is throw some money at it, and that's it. I'm going to get someone going to fix this problem. And then they'll go, and then not only will they do that, some people are going to say, like, I'm going to want to hire a company. Look, well, I found somebody for myself for $2 an hour. By the way, if anybody wants to know a little tip, you can go to Pakistan and you can find somebody for $1.50 an hour. So don't use me or any company. Just do it yourself.
How do you find people in Pakistan? How does anyone find?
I don't know. Just go online, friend them on LinkedIn, spend 1,000 hours doing it. And I'm sure there are ways to do that. I have a guy who could do it. You can go with him. I'm making fun of this, and I'm doing this for a reason, is because, look, I don't care what size company you are. If you have money, the money is important. I don't care how much money you're spending. The money you're spending is important. You want a return. It's not about me. It's not why I'm on this podcast. It's what any company you're going with. The focus is a return on investment. And by the way, people don't realize is that if you get a right hire, your return on investment could be unbelievable. Like, people would spend, let's say $80,000 a year. Anyone who's doing that, let's say, wants to get whatever X multiple of that employee in the company. And if you're hoping to go somewhere cheaper, it's just like, I think like people sometimes aren't realistic of their expectations of it. And it's like, sometimes you can get somebody really cheap, but just start out with a clear, see what the problem is. Somebody's trying to hire. They need somebody to answer the phone calls for them. Well, what's the problem? Every time I handle a sales call, I always understand, like, why are you talking to me? What's the issue? Let's understand it. And once you identify it, then we want to go ahead and then see, okay, well, what makes sense over here? Yes, your person shouldn't be handling $10 an hour tasks or $20 an hour tasks, whatever it is, ultimately you want your person in your office that's really, let's say, running the show. They shouldn't be organizing things. Let's say they should focus. Like, if I have a salesperson, he comes to me, he hires an executive assistant. That executive assistant should literally manage his CRM for him, should be on those calls, should know what's going on, and when he's a guy who's totally disorganized, he should go in the thing. Okay, I'm meeting with Isaac Friedman. He goes in there, he sees the whole thing. It's just thinking from an investor standpoint, but it's also like not just emotionally jumping into it. That's number one, I would say.
Very interesting. This is sort of attached to the previous question. Are there some common mistakes you see companies making when they hire remote?
Well, yeah, I mean, being impulsive, as in with just making a hire. Like, it doesn't mean they shouldn't. It's just like, understand like what it is that you want to hire. Like, sometimes somebody will come to me and they'll say, all right, I need a marketer. What's the issue? I got to get more out there. I'll say, like, okay, well, why don't you go to a marketing agency? Why are you coming to me? It's like, well, sometimes they'll say they're expensive. I'm like, well, I'm not the cheap way out. Like, I hire most clients, like obviously I'll take it, but sometimes if it doesn't make sense, if a guy wants to hire somebody from me from Google Ads and he has no idea about at all how to do that, I like to place employees in a company of where at some point somebody's going to keep them accountable.
Right.
And not just come back and like, okay, the magic didn't work. I'm like, I'm sorry. Again, I hired directors too, for example, but there has to be some line of like accountability being done. But again, like what other things people should look out for, or like other things they should consider. Obviously, it's making sure to let employees know where you stand. Being a bit direct about complimenting. It's be clear about your expectations. Like if you want somebody to handle something, just really be clear about like what it is you want the person to do and what does a successful output look like. Like that's really another important thing. Just be clear about that. But I'll tell you, I've shared this with my client coordinator. I've shared this with my bookkeeper. I've shared this with every employee. You have to understand, I'm going to tell you one thing that's really interesting, like a thought that no one has ever seen. Have you ever noticed the people in the subways and it's like you see this guy beating somebody else up, like beating him to a pulp?
Okay.
How did you see that video? Somebody was taking it, right?
Right.
Why didn't that person call 911 instead?
That thought crosses my mind almost every time.
And it's like when it's a person, I'm like, I say this in front of my wife. I'll say like, look, if I was there, I'd beat that guy up and I'll use whatever Taekwondo I learned in 3rd grade and I'll beat this guy up.
Right.
But there's something called in psychology. My wife taught me this one. She's a speech therapist, but she taught me something called the bystander effect. In the city, if you ever see, like when you see like thousands of people, there's only so much, like people by default will become desensitized to somebody. Okay. And what they'll do is that they're going to feel that this person is just like, okay, like there's no human element of it involved. Right. It's like, I'll take the video instead of calling 911 because it's like, I'm not like connected with that. Right. And you'll see like in there's a book called, what's a book by Chris Voss, A Negotiation, whatever.
Oh,
yeah.
I've heard of Chris Voss and I've seen a few of his courses from Masterclass.
Yeah. So he has a book.
That guy's
it's not
great.
How to Get to Yes, but whatever. He was an FBI negotiator, and what he talked about in there is, he said is when you're negotiating against say, somebody who's this guy is gonna kill somebody and he has them in custody, he has them and they're hostage, right? He says you have to humanize the person. Humanize it. It's a mother with a family, and it's this is, again, I don't know all his lines, but he says, that's one of our strategies of what we would do, right? When somebody's a virtual assistant, and sometimes a little bit more than others with the Philippines, again, I pick on them a lot, but they could be the best people in the world with the right position, whatever.
Right.
But there's such a desensitized element to this employee, to this employee and this employee from you. And you're hiring this person, they're willing to start with you, but you need to build a relationship between them and their position. Okay. I'll tell you an example. I had a contractor who came to my house. I never got out of my head. This painter said, and we were doing my house. We just moved in, and I had contractors working there. Like I was trying to be cheap. I didn't want to use a contractor to run the whole thing. I'm like, I'm going to be the big guy. I'm going to run all the contractors. So I hired painters, I hired plumbers and everything. And they were all yelling at me and fighting against each other. And I never forgot what my painter said. He says, Aaron, I got this done and this guy ruined my paint. I'm like, why does this guy say that? My paint? Like, no, it's my paint. I paid for it.
Right.
Like, why was he saying that? The best workers are the ones who could take pride over their work. An employee, I don't care where they are. I don't care how much you're paying them. If you want to make money off of whoever it is, whether you're using Blackbird recruiting, whether you're using my company, whether you use any company, you need to have them in a situation of where ultimately they're going to take pride. Otherwise, you hired a robot. That's not AI. That's what it is. So you have to build a level of pride between them and their ultimate output. And that's why, even though this is my new thing coming in 26, has nothing to do with my coordinator, at least now, has nothing to do with my bookkeeper, has nothing to do with my recruiters at this point. It's almost like a whole separate division. I'll include them. We'll see how things go. Why am I sharing that with them? Because I want them to be excited. And it's so important. I don't care if you're not comfortable talking with your employees. I don't even get your wife to do it, even if she doesn't work for the company. Make them think that she does something in the company, but she doesn't. But all she's doing is just, even if it's not exciting things, but just show them what you're doing. Ask their opinion, even though you don't care what they say. Even if their idea doesn't make sense. You have to do that, because what you're doing is you're adding a human element to it. And you have this person 10,000 miles away. I promise you, your ROI in that person will skyrocket. Even if they're not the best employee, whatever you can get out of them, it will be 10 times more. Because what you're doing is that you're humanizing their work for them, and you're building a relationship for them with that.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Does culture play a factor? I know when it's in-house teams, culture is a very, very big factor when it comes to hiring. When you have remote teams, and sometimes from different countries, remote teams are individuals. You'll have, your finance person in Argentina, your customer service person in Mexico.
Yeah.
How important is it to think, can these two people get along? Or, culture, I'm going to hire similar types of personalities. Or how important is culture versus, in-house is very important. On a scale of 1 to 10, where does culture play a factor when it comes to remote?
Culture is huge. Again, that's one of the things, by the way, when I mentioned about having like an office somewhere else, you have zero control over culture. Just saying.
When you hire remote, or
when you have an office outside of your office, when you have a location where everyone comes together physically and they're all working in an office and you're not there, you have zero. It's from my experience. Like personally, I think there was zero control over culture, because culture ultimately comes from the top. Sometimes it may not be the owner. Sometimes it might be the director of operations, but a lot of times it comes from the top. And that's a really important thing. And everyone hears culture. What does culture even mean? Culture means is there's a certain set of values that you have that people are following. Let's break it down further, just quickly, and I'm answering your question to this. EOS is something that I've run EOS, in different companies.
Dabbled or
no, I've been in heavily involved. They talk about the core values. You should have 4 or 5 core values, and culture is built on core values. And what does core value mean? Sometimes in different companies, different core values are important, and you should hire or fire by that. That's how important it is. So core values is really, let's say, answering clients always on time, always working above and beyond. And they sound very cliche, but
taking accountability.
For me, taking accountability. But for me, for example, I would love to be in a position of where I have to tell my employee to stop working. In my company, I want them to personally be so excited about the work they're doing and love it so much that I have to tell them, say, Sam, you have to stop working. This is breathe. And I have clients who've said that, and it does matter. Now, it sounds funny and it sounds like a pipe dream, but really you want them, ideally, let's say, to be excited. In other companies, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's we always answer customers on time. You have to really love customers. Other software, maybe not so much. Maybe yes. Maybe the end game product matters. But culture is really important. In a remote environment, it's really important. And, it just really comes down to the happiness, satisfaction of the employees that you have. And when you have everyone remote, these things matter so much more. When you have someone local, you feel like sometimes it just comes automatically a little bit. When remote, it's really all about what you create it to be. So it's definitely very important. And it comes down to money at the end of the day. As Mark Cuban once said, I'm nice because being nice makes more money. Because he used to be tough and everything, and that's what he said, and just that stuck in my head.
We're gonna make that a short, on its own. How do you ensure consistency and productivity across the board when you're hiring people from different countries? Work quality.
So it's important to try. Again, this might be at a high level, but it's also important to try to have, the expectations be really clear. Have a bit of KPIs if you can. They stand for key performance indicators. As if they do this, that means that they're really doing a good job with that. So if you can, also something called end of day reports, where they just list simple on an Excel sheet. They're just listing, or Google Sheet best, the list of what they're doing at the end of the day. And they just list it down, and you could just review it. Sometimes it's an email. But what's best is that when you're giving it over, you're giving over a responsibility, not a task.
Right.
And say, look, And you have to, the best would be is if you make it in a way of where it's foolproof. What does that mean? You are in charge of talking to the customers. I need to know that every customer is being responded to, whether it's through email, whether it's through phone call.
Right.
If I see that calls were not being answered, there better be a good reason for it.
That's
For whatever
KPI.
reason it is. And then I wouldn't even say KPI. It's a simple directive. And then when you go into Zoom on the back of the phone on this system or whatever you're using, and you see calls weren't answered, maybe even get them forwarded to your email. But that you might be a bit impulsive and jumping out at them if it's like that. But if you see that, then it's making it simple. That's really what I would say. By the way, when you give over responsibility and not a task, see, your task is just like, okay, I'm doing this. A lot of virtual assistants just do tasks. Even with remote employees, I like to give over responsibilities. More pride comes in there, more accountability is there. That's really what I would say is like, let them answer the phones. Maybe even if there's a manager above them, but this person's answering all the calls. They also feel more pride in their position then. It's a little hard to take pride is like when I'm just like a waitress for a boss in New York.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
That's a task.
As a task. It's best is give it responsibilities because then what you're doing is you're not just giving over work, you're giving over headspace. Headspace was worth the most, more than time.
I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Blackbird Recruiting. ChatGPT, what do you think about Blackbird Recruiting?
Blackbird Recruiting, the team that finds you the right people so you can stop wasting time on resumes that look like they were written by someone's dog. If you're a business owner struggling to find top talent, let Blackbird do the heavy lifting. They'll help you find candidates who actually get it. Visit blackbirdrecruiting.com and let them take your hiring game to new heights.
You heard it here first. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome back. What trends have you seen evolve since remote work started? COVID, post-COVID, even before, pre-COVID. Were there any trends that you saw evolve? Are there any here to stay? Things that are not relevant anymore? Do you place people in the US as well?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know how much this question is relevant then.
What do you mean?
Because I know some companies that have people in the US, even though the New York City has higher salaries than Ohio. Some companies will hire people in Ohio because, it's more affordable. But then they realize remote is harder. We're going to bring back, start hiring in people in the New York office.
Okay, I'll tell you two things. Number one is I've had some employees who moved to the US because they love working for my clients so much.
Get out!
Promise you. Yeah, 100%. It was really,
it
was very interesting. Yeah.
The clients started paying them more?
I kind of lost the client, but it gave me so much like nachas. Like it was such a nice thing. I had it I had it 3 times. Yeah, pride. I'm sorry.
No,
it happened a few times actually this year. And it was great. It was just such a nice thing. Like, okay,
Did they raise their salaries?
They did. They had to, but so why would it still make sense? Because it's the connection, and it's that that, and they didn't even necessarily move in the same location, but they moved to the States. Sometimes they moved to the same area, but they felt like I had a client in.
Where did the employee come from?
We had an employee from Mexico that moved to California.
Okay.
And we've had another employee that moved to Canada from the Philippines. We had.
They need to get a visa, apartment, a car.
I don't deal with that, so
right, but
they deal with it on their own.
Wow.
But they felt really connected.
It's so good that they moved over.
By the way, I just want to say something. In the general world of things, outside of the virtual assistant world, whatever we're used to, people move for jobs.
Right.
My father moved from Vienna to Muncie,
really?
because of work. People move because of work. Question is it a gig or is it a job?
Right.
So I like to fill jobs, not like gigs. Now, sometimes things are jobs, but they say they're jobs, but they're gigs, but these are really jobs. So sometimes it happens. Again, as of now, I don't get involved. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. If they move to the US, doesn't happen that often, but it's just legal purposes, which is why sometimes we've shared, went away from that. But yeah, so to answer your question is that we don't hire necessarily in the US. We've had some people who moved to the US, but one of the real reasons why we do not hire in the, let's call it first world countries, is because I like to hire people, again, coming down to positioning of where when I have a client who's an employer and I'm putting the job out to my millions of candidates in my system or for outside, which we usually do from scratch, I want them to be in the best position possible. You're living in Chile and you get a chance to make a real difference in an American company. That's very cool for someone living in Chile. I'm sorry.
They're going to put in the
I
sweat.
would like to, and you're getting someone really smart, and they could be as smart as somebody in the U.S. It's not just, again, the whole accent thing and everything is this doesn't, which is a different conversation. It's an interesting point, but again, I hire people many times with very good accents, but there are many people. It's not just Americans that are smart. There are 7.5 billion other people out there. They're very smart people. Again, someone in Chile that's a very smart person. They can do equal as much, if not better. By the way, I just want to tell you, I just filled in a position that would have cost me more money than if I would hire here. And I hired her in Mexico actually just yesterday. If I hired someone as a secretary here, she's more money than that.
Because of the level of years of experience?
Yeah. She's 25 an hour. And I hired her in Mexico just yesterday. I just hired somebody.
Wow.
Why did I do that? Well, because she would be worth about $100 an hour if she lived in New York. It's just, you got to look at it like an investment. Again, most of my employees, let's say, are in the ranges of 10 and then 15 and 20. Those are usually like the 3 tiers, as I mentioned. She's, again, 25.
Right.
But she's worth 100.
Here.
Yeah. Why should I do that?
Right.
And like we vetted her heavily, and she's unbelievable. Like again.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's just an investment. When people like start to realize that, like, they're simple math. There's incredible talent. The United States is a small portion of the world, and there's unbelievable people out there. If the reach is good and the vetting is excellent, then why should you take advantage? Google does it. Apple does it.
Do you have a story of the strangest position that you filled? Most unique, random? If you say astronaut, we're done. We're finishing the pod.
I mean, I had a guy apply. He was actually an electrical engineer for NASA.
Get it out. Really?
Yeah, he applied for a position. It was somebody was hiring an electrical engineer, but he was in the U.S. So.
No, but you ever got a request?
I know what you're saying.
You ever got a request from a client for something very unique?
I don't want everyone to think that this is like the typical day-to-day hires. But I had an interesting position actually. I had a client who was he was a real estate broker. Actually, this could be quite possible. Actually, this position. I was thinking of another one, but this actually is quite possible. He was a real estate attorney. Okay, he did $50 to $200 million deals. All right, and he wanted to hire somebody. He told me, he says, Aaron, look, I've been trying to hire a real estate contract attorney, who does real estate contracts.
Real estate attorney.
Yeah, not any real estate attorney, one that deals with contracts. He told me, he says, Aaron, look, I'm doing $50 to $200 million deals. I'm going through 400 pages of contracts. He's like, I can't do this. I'm not in my right mind when I'm in meeting with them. Right. Because I'm like, you know what that's like. It's like imagine me looking through an Excel sheet. Like I lose my mind, right. As a bookkeeper. But anyways, this is what he told me. He says he's like, can you help me out? I'm like, okay, well, what have you been trying to do? He's like, look, I've been trying to find a contract management attorney. He said to me, he says, for 5 years. And it's like, I like to ask questions. I'm curious and I want to help. I'm like, okay, so how much were you willing to pay? He's like, $250 an hour. I'm like, okay, have a good day. I'm like thinking to myself, like immediately it's a thought in my head. I'm like, okay, so how can I help you? He's like, can you help me? I'm like, that didn't really answer my question. Like I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? So we did some research in that position. Long story short, we got him somebody for, $25 an hour who did contract management for Walmart. And she lives in either Venezuela or Mexico. Yeah, also Mexico. I mean, you don't just hire.
She's not an attorney. This candidate in Venezuela is an attorney.
So she's a Mexican attorney, but she's dealt with contracts from obviously different countries. Like she's done it for Walmart. Walmart has locations all over the place. Right. So did she pass the bar in the States? No, she didn't. He wants her to review it for him. So some people say, well, let's use AI to do that. I don't think people understand AI that they're gonna say that because it's not so simple. Like
Definitely.
you need to have somebody's stamp of approval, and she was a very high level person. Um, one other position I'll tell you is that we had a client who has a PR firm in Manhattan,
Okay.
and he gets people on Fox News, CNN. He's now also in investor relations. Like he has Coinbase as a client. He was on iHeartRadio. He was like all around like big stuff. And he told us he wanted he's hired a lot of positions from us. He wanted to hire a booker.
To get people
Somebody
on
who
these
gets people
stations.
on CNN, on Fox News, talk about their business. Anyways, we got him somebody. I did tell him it was an experimental hire. I told him, I said, blank, whatever your name is. I told him, I said, I can't guarantee it. We love you as a client so much. We're going to try to figure this out for you. Again, we're not, so we ended up getting him somebody. Her name was Alexis Germany. She was originally from, what a flamboyant name. Obviously that makes sense. She was from New York City. She had a Rolodex of clients, not clients, of relationships
Stations, yeah.
from Fox News and CNN. And he hired her, and she was a booker for him. And she got people on television for him. Again, look, we obviously don't do just the one-offs. We can hire up to like 20 or 30 employees, obviously, as well.
Right.
But every single person we treat like it's like you really have to understand, it's an investment. It's not just
When it comes to hiring across the border, right? Different countries,
yeah.
different continents, are there legalities people need to know about? Or do they just pay you and then you pay the employee?
Yeah. So the second part.
Clients, like,
So I'll tell you like this. Our clients do pay us and we pay the employee. We operate like a subscription. We pay employees every single week. We don't do it twice a month. I'm a very big believer in that. We call it like the golden handcuff strategy because you're, like a kid that touches the fire immediately. The fire doesn't like burn his hand tomorrow. It does it
Right.
that second, So I like it when somebody works. Contractors do this too. Like they pay them once a week.
right.
So when you have somebody virtual, like don't pay them once a month. Don't pay them twice a month. You pay them every week. Make it
Right.
feel consequential. They did work. Let them. So we
I don't
do
understand
that.
why people get paid once a month or pay weekly. People appreciate it better, and it costs you the same amount of money. Same amount.
You know
of
what
money.
it is because when you have
Cash
look,
flow.
the more you could hold on to money, the more it's worth. Same reason why banks pay you an interest rate.
Right.
So that's why they'll want to do that.
Cash flow.
But if what's worth more, holding on the money for longer
Right.
or paying the employee? And sometimes obviously people don't have the money.
Right.
And it's cash is tight. But by us, it's like I can't serve you if I can't see this person is going to work for you long term. So like,
Right.
we need to pay them weekly. Use credit card. I don't care. Pay them weekly.
But when it
So
comes
legalities is obviously it's like we handle it. So
It's
by
your
us,
issue.
it's like look, this employee is yours. There's no team leader. There's no one hiding behind a computer. Employee does a terrible job. They're never being hired by another client again. But it's like, it's like leasing a car. Obviously, they're human beings. But when you lease a car, you think it's like, okay, hey, check on my car. It's your car. But it's really owned by Hyundai Financial.
Right.
So again, so we take care of them. We obviously want to make sure things work out really well, but like we handle that. You never have to worry about it. That's as far as they're concerned. Employees are very happy.
So there's no real like legalities
Yeah.
or compliance people need to be worried about or be concerned about. That's your
No.
issue, problem.
Yeah, that's our problem. We deal with that.
Recently, I think a few months ago, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase was caught on a hot mic or on a conference call.
Yeah, I heard it.
He was cursing out people who were working remote. It doesn't work anymore. We're going to bring people back in the office. We're done. I'm sure they still have thousands of people working remotely. What is your take on that? Where companies will be like, back into the office. We feel like productivity is down significantly.
Okay. So first of all, I heard that. I don't know who he was talking to, which makes
Probably
a big difference.
his leadership team.
Okay. Leadership team. So first of all, you have to take in consideration is that JP Morgan is a massive company. It's very different. When you have a company that size where the world is literally relying on JP Morgan to work efficiently. So that's number one, I'll tell you. Number two is obviously who they were talking to. The third thing I'll say is that remote work is incredible work. If think of it like this. I'm going to really dumb this down here. The U.S. government works remote. Now you're going to say, what do you mean? Well, it's very clear. I mean, what do you mean there's government buildings? Well, there's a government building in Washington. There's a government building in New York. They all work together. To a certain extent, the biggest companies in the world that work if there's anything that physically is here and then works with something somewhere else, they are working remote.
Right.
It's the same thing like delegation or outsourcing. Yeah, Apple outsources their, again, they outsource their certain chips for this. You have to see this in more of a global scale.
I think he was referring to people working from home.
Right. So what they're referring to is working from home. So I'll tell you like this. I actually went to a Kabbalist about this. I'm a Kabbalah about this. A big righteous tzaddik, from Yerushalayim.
Google the word Makobel.
Okay. Yes, exactly. I went to him about this, and I personally struggled with my operations director position. I tried hiring this position remotely. I would say about 9 times. I went through 9 people.
Whoa, over how long?
Trying to hire this over 4 years. Yeah.
What was the issue?
Wait, so let me first tell you what he said, and then you're gonna hear the issue.
ADHD brain. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. You settled it in, but I want to make sure. So I'll tell you. I asked him. I said, "What should I do?" He told me, and he told me. He says that this issue is what you need to do is this position you need to hire locally. He didn't tell me much more. I tried asking him because, I want to frag him up, ask him like questions. And like, I love to when somebody's like very holy and everything, it's like, let's bring this down to earth. Okay. Why are you saying this? I hear what you're saying. I'll listen to you, but I need to first in my brain, I need to process this. Anyways, I couldn't really pull that off too much, but I thought about it a long time. Obviously I did do it. Best decision I ever did. Yes, my operations director is locally, is in my office. And what I realized is that high-level positions, you need to hire local. When you have one position of where there's so much, all the endpoints of the operations, from that are happening, you got endpoints like the drivers, you have the sourcing specialists, the manufacturers in China, or you have the this or that, all where everything comes together at the top. They need to physically be together. Don't come to me for that position.
Yeah.
High level positions at that level where you have so many things, it's like you just need to emotionally, physically, everything be in sync. Do not hire that remotely. Most people don't, but that's what I would tell you. And that's why I went through so many positions. I tried them because I love testing the boundaries of things. And that's why I keep trying to do is like, what can you exploit the global talent for? How far can it actually go? And I tried it, and it didn't work. But it's because when they're physically with you, to a certain extent at that high level, I could share the importance, like the deepest level of importance of the end game results at the highest level when they're local. But I don't think you need that even for regular high level positions. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But there is obviously a level of local that's important. But
wow.
Yeah.
Pretty wild stuff. Thank you.
Sure.
What a great conversation. Before we finish, give people an opportunity. Where can they find you if they want to reach out? I will say, Aaron, I think you're the only company that does this. I'll see on your WhatsApp status or on your LinkedIn short 30 to 60 second clips of, people who you can source. Let's call them, outsourcers, or let's say bookkeepers, or people that, in Argentina, some potential employees where they're introducing themselves, and you can see their personality. You can see the way they communicate. You can see if there's a slight language barrier, and they're marketing themselves. I think you're the only one who I've seen has done this. It's really, really cool. Give people an opportunity. Where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on realhires.com. You can definitely reach out to me via,
don't drop your phone number because you don't know how
definitely not doing
this
that.
goes viral.
Definitely not doing that. But
Aaron Klein, how do you spell your first name? Because people spell it differently.
Aaron Klein.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to help out anybody who needs help.
Aaron, thank you
This has
so
been fun.
much. What a great episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you in the next episode.